Members? Agreed. Thank you for that. Item 9, which is that's item 9. Item 10, which is the construction of 12 units at George's Place, Dunleary. Catherine, please.
Okay, this is a Part 8 for the proposed development of 12 dwellings at George's Place, Dunleary. The lands at George's Place form part of the former depot premises. The scheme is designed to assist in meeting the housing need for the area. The report has been circulated to the departments and has been subject to the public consultation process. I'm just going to pass over now to Bob, who will go through the design.
Okay, thank you. I wanted just to set this proposal in the slightly wider context of George's Place and the lands there. The planning context is that within the county development plan, the zoning is for MTC for the site, and there's a specific local objective to seek the renewal of the obsolete area at George's Place in accordance with the objectives of the Dunleary Urban Framework Plan. The Dunleary Urban Framework Plan sets out 3 high-level themes: reconnecting the town centre to the waterfront, creating vitality within the town centre, and strengthening links between the town centre and the adjoining areas. Within the urban structure plan, there is this diagram which shows the high-level objectives of forging new connections between the main street and the waterfront, and the idea being to open up these areas so that people can walk, pedestrians can walk with permeability between the 2 areas. And so far we've managed to create linkage between the People's Park and over the new deck over towards the seafront. We have the linkage through the Lexicon onto Hague Terrace. We're bringing forward proposals for Hague Terrace and its upgrade to the intersection with George's Street. The link between the Harbour Master's Place and Sussex Street and Ablana is under discussion. A new link has been forged between the lighthouse down between George's Place and George's Street. And obviously we have upgraded a significant portion of Marine Road. So all of these are part of this strategy of creating this new linkage. And on George's Place, the ideas that were stated for George's Place is to create a new route and also to create active frontage along Kelly's Avenue. So those are the 2 principal ones. And this little diagram here is within the urban structure plan itself. So an evolving master plan for George's Place. We're very cognizant of the fact that there are 3 protected structures on George's Place. The facade of the old fire station, number 9, and I think what's known generally as the wash house. And we've also looked at the historical evolution of these properties and also the way, say, from 1837 up to the modern day, the actual context around those houses and around those buildings has changed. So originally you would have had number 9, and then over time you would have had the addition of the fire station and the wash house, and indeed the building of new roads. So the context of this area has changed over time. We also looked at the typology, the scale and the uses in the area. And if you take a cross-section between George's Street over towards the fire station, you go from 2-storey buildings where you have, say, the coffee shops, across to the lighthouse, which is 3 to 4, into the centre of that area, which goes higher, out onto the new residential apartments on George's Place, and then over to the fire station. So the scale builds up, and then it reaches a point of the fire station, and then it starts decreasing again until it actually goes around the corner to the Regency Terraces along Crofton Avenue. Kelly's Avenue itself has some very nice buildings, but on the other hand, it's got a long wall and it's got a fairly poor public realm. There's a domestic scale, obviously, along Stable Lane, and there are the presence of the existing granite walls. So all of these elements are under consideration when we talk about a plan for George's Place. So these 2 slides give an indicative idea of what might come on George's Place. The grey area, greyed out on the right-hand side, below the two red blocks, is the area that forms the subject of this Part 8. So that's the area where the 12 houses are proposed. The area to the left-hand side, to the back of the fire station, is seen as the area which could take the greatest potential for height and for development for apartments. And then it will grade down as it goes towards Stable Lane to Mew-style dwellings. And there will be open space within that area for residents. We think that the best use for the two protected structures may be to see commercial use, and there may be retail at ground level as you come through from George's Place. So we wanted to present this so that when we come to the Part 8, we'll be able to see it in context. And indicative heights. So you get a gradation of 4 to 5 in and around where the fire station is, opposite the buildings on George's Place, which we've shown have height 2 to 3 as you go down towards Stable Lane. And obviously the two buildings then are the same where the protected structures are, and then it's lower again down as you go towards Kelly's Avenue, which is a more domestic scale. So in summary, it's a range of dwelling types ranging in height from 5 stories to 2 stories, with a range of uses that are consistent with its major town centre zoning, including commercial and retail uses. So on the Part 8 itself is outlined in the area in the red line. And what we've proposed are 12 two-bed units laid out to form new streets along the entrance in off George's Place, and also along Kelly's Avenue. And on Kelly's Avenue, it's set out so that it forms a terrace with new ground floor uses, which will provide life and liveliness along Kelly's Avenue. So the elevations, they're very simple two-bed units. There's 2 types. One is a narrow-fronted two-bed unit, and the other is a wide-fronted two-bed unit, which is single aspect at the upper level. It does have roof lighting, so it can take roof lighting from both sides, but it's single aspect where to the north of the site it comes in closest proximity to the existing houses. So just the inspiration for this kind of development, we looked at various elements around which we find locally. You have the Dutch terraced houses in Dorky, and you have the local houses with their narrow front gardens. And you have Archery Court with its home zone pedestrian, which is a traffic calmed area, which creates very pleasant space. And then you have the local materials of buff-coloured brick on the existing houses on Kelly's Avenue. And as I said, these are the elevations with their Dutch gable style. And these are the various cross-sections which formed part of the Part 8 pack. So cognizant of some of the submissions which Catherine will outline, this drawing, which is revision A, proposes to pull some of the houses slightly to the left, a metre to the west along the pedestrian home zone, and that gives a greater distance to the back of the wash house. We're also proposing to settle the materials on a buff-coloured brick, both back and front, so that on both sides of the wash house we'll have good quality elevations. And this final drawing here illustrates how the buildings would look to Kelly's Avenue. So you'll have new trees, you'll have new pull-in parking, the wall would be removed, you'll have new housing in brick, some brick, and then as you go down towards the Regency Terrace on Crofton, towards Crofton Avenue, they would change into a plastered facade. So the gables pick up on the wash house, and the plastered facades will pick up on the plastered terraces along Crofton Avenue. And that's it.
Okay, there were a number of submissions received, and the responses are outlined in the Chief Executive's report. I'm just going to go through some of the main ones. The scheme does not comply with development plan and failure to take into consideration the remainder of the site. Our response to that is the proposed Part 8 complies with Appendix 12 of the Dún Laoghaire Urban Framework Development Plan of the County Development Plan. The overall master plan for the site will provide for a quality urban design outcome appropriate to major town centre zoning. Lack of mix of housing And the housing need is based on established evidence, and there is a need for 2 beds in this area. In the context of the entire site, there will be a mix of accommodation types and tenure type. Conservation in terms of protected structures. The proposed Part 8 does not include any works to the protected structures. It is, however, proposed, as Bob outlined, to increase the distance between the new units and the washhouse by moving the 6 dwellings within the site 1 metre to the west. Stable Lane Gateway. The link at Stable Lane forms part of the Dún Laoghaire Urban Framework Plan to encourage and provide for increased pedestrian and cycle permeability between Crofton Road and George's Street, and forms part of the master plan for the site. However, the link is being omitted at this time. Members are hereby notified, subject to Section 138 of the Local Government Act 2001 as amended, of the intention to proceed with this development, subject to increasing the distance between 6 of the units and the washhouse 1 metre to the west, and the rear elevation of the dwellings along the pedestrian home zone to be finished in a clay-facing brick to harmonise with the surrounding context, and to any such minor or immaterial alterations to the plans and particulars of the development.
Okay, thank you for that, Manager. And the first question is from Councillor Halpin, please.
Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach. And I've just got a few questions and comments on this. And first of all, to say I'm absolutely delighted that there's finally going to be a development of social housing in Dún Laoghaire town, which I know that we and People Before Profit have been proposing here for, well, since I've been here 5 years, have been trying to move this site from its derelict state to house families in Dún Laoghaire town. So I am delighted to see that. I would like to see a bigger development of social housing on the site, because I think that's what we need in Dún Laoghaire. I think it's bordering on criminal that the council owns land in this town that could be built on quickly to house families, and we could do more than just 12 units. I'd also like to see a better mix, and I know that the figures of people who need 2-bed houses are higher than 3 beds, but I would like to be kind of for this to be cleared up for me, because to me, if you build a group housing scheme with just 2 beds, you are allowing for a more transitionary kind of housing, because people grow out of 2 beds very easily. It's obvious that there are more people on the 2-bed list because you have a child, the 2 of you go on the list, or the 3 of you go on the list, and you need a 2-bed. You can rapidly grow out of that, and I think this is evidenced by, and unless I'm confusing this, it's evidenced by how on the priority list there is always more people on the 3-bed priority list than on the 2-bed priority list. And I think that's because many people on the 2-bed list are actually in need of a 3-bed because their family has already grown and they have not yet updated their application, and that you don't necessarily, and otherwise you wouldn't see that discrepancy unless I'm missing the point on that. So I would like to understand why a few 3-beds weren't mixed in, or why we're not contemplating building 4 beds. There aren't a huge amount of people on the 4-bed lists, but there are people on the 4-bed list, and we need, if we're building council housing, to be including the odd 4-bed house in the developments. So that's just my first comments on this. I am a bit concerned that where I see what Bob is saying about possible plans for the rest of the site, but I am a bit concerned that we're not looking at the site as a whole at the one time to be able to develop a more coherent plan. And I wonder if it could be considered to be project splitting in some way, to be dividing this into two different projects, and how then that fits with the density on the site. And maybe there could be a question on this. Now, just to get on to another big concern of mine, at our June council meeting, there was a motion passed, and just for the record, I'm going to read it out, right? And it was that this council proceeds to the Part 8 consultation for the provision of the rapid delivery social housing units for part of the George's Place depot. We, in People Before Profit, voted against this because we wanted to see traditional method building going on in George's Place depot. But that was the motion that was agreed. And unless I'm mistaken, the Part 8 that went out to public consultation doesn't mention rapid delivery. I've searched through all of those documents and there's no mention of rapid delivery. So, as I understand it, the plan is for rapid delivery. Certainly that was the motion that was agreed, but yet it's not, and it's briefly referred to in the report, but it didn't, unless I've missed it, I didn't see it in the part that went out to public consultation. So I don't know why that happened, and it would strike me that if there's a new method of house building that has been subject of much discussion across the city, has caused much consternation, that when that is the plan for the site, that was not included in the public consultation does concern me. And I would like some clarity at this meeting and before we vote on whether or not this is what is planned for the site. Because the rationale, as I understand it, for a rapid build is that it's fast and cheap. And I think evidence from around the city has shown that it has been neither fast nor cheap. I do have a few more points to say on this, I'm sorry, but this site has been subject of a lot of discussion here in the Council, and I would like to make my points. So I wouldn't be happy if this is moving forward to rapid build housing without a full and frank discussion on what that rapid build housing is. And that's why I've put in a motion to that effect, that we would move forward immediately with traditional build, and if rapid build is being contemplated by Dún Laoghaire County Council, that should be subject of a further discussion and a vote here in the Council chamber. And then lastly, I'd like to make the point on the laneway that was subject of a lot of the contributions, and I've also put in a motion that we actually keep that laneway shut until the houses are built, they're allocated, and then it becomes a matter of public consultation with the new and the older people at the who are living in and around the area. Because, you know, as we know from across the county, there are many people who like to live in a cul-de-sac who don't want a laneway through, and it always causes us issues. I think it should be decided when people are living in that area. So I would ask people to support that motion if they agree with that.
Thank you, Councillor Halpin. I think we're going to have a number of questions on this, so we might just take a few together just to speed it up if that's agreeable with members. The next speaker I have is Councillor Merrigan.
Good morning, can I be quick on this one? I agree with a lot of what Councillor Halpin has said, and I won't reiterate those points. I am concerned about the permeability. I think that's, first of all, it was put into the plan, as you rightly say. It was in the Urban Framework Plan, but it was also put into the County Development Plan. I think it was a motion from Councillor Stewart, and I think it's important that we have that in all developments in the town. Regarding the issue of George's Place generally, a number of us tried during the County Development Plan to get this area for social housing, to prioritise it, to rebuild the population which had been donated out of our town over the last number of years. And one thing that we came up at time and time again during the County Development Plan was opposition on the basis that it was major town centre and that densities, etc., had to be complied with. I did ask at the area committee, could I have a statement from the planning department that, in their professional opinion, that this particular development of a part of the site was in accordance with the planning, with the County Development Plan. Understanding, of course, that the County Development Plan, after many court cases, is considered a contract between the people and the council, and we are here to make sure that that's upheld. There is a legitimate expectation that the County Development Plan is delivered. The other issues that, as I said, I haven't had that statement. The one thing it does show that the quality of the drawings from in-house are excellent. They look wonderful, and I hope that what we see is what we get here. But there is one thing that seems to come up time and time again, and we're not getting any answer to it. This rapid build, every time we are told, or we ask about rapid build, we're told rapid build is rapid build. It's a bit of a tautology, a bit like Brexit means Brexit. We're not getting any answer to it. What is rapid build? Is it in any way less costly than traditional build? We don't know. From what we're hearing from Dublin City Council and our colleagues there, it is not the case. Maybe, to get the maximum benefit from this site, we should look at traditional build, and that's why I fully agree with Councillor Halpin. The second and last point, the issue of three-bedroom. Is there any way at all that a three-bedroom, at least two of these, will become a three-bedroom unit? Because that's what families need. And finally, if I hear one simple point of clarification. Stable lane, private lane. The exit from the council depot, is that onto Connaught Place? And Connaught Place has been taken in charge. Is Connaught Place up to the wall and stable lane to the right and left of it, or does Connaught Place come up to the wall and stable lane being the private laneway there? It would seem very odd that the council would have opened their depot and had to cross a private laneway to exit the street. So I think it actually exits onto Connaught Place, which is a public road. Go to Michael.
Thank you, Councillor Merrigan. Okay, bring the manager in at this point, please. Are there any other questions at this point then? I thought there was... No? 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 Okay. Manager, please.
Okay. In relation to the better mix, the units are being provided based on the evidence of the need for the area, which is 2-bed. There are obviously, there will be in the entire site, there will be a mix of various other types, which will satisfy the site itself and make it, in terms of the mix, will make it more what you're talking about there. In relation to the site is zoned MTC. Downsizing, we're actually getting a number of 3-beds. You'll see from one of the questions that were raised previously that we've got a number of 3-beds back under the downsizing scheme. We're acquiring 3-beds. We're getting 3-beds under Part 5. So all in all, I think the 3-bed is being met and is being considered by the Housing Department. This is about providing houses immediately and getting houses rapid response to delivery. Bob is going to deal with the question on the rapid versus what you're talking about in terms of conventional build. With regard to the laneway at Stable Lane, that is part of the urban framework plan to encourage, as I said earlier, to encourage and provide for increased pedestrian and cycle permeability between Crofton Road and George's Place. And anything, keeping that gate closed or changing that, it would be in contravention of the development plan. So, but it's being omitted just at this time. In relation to 3-bed units, 3-bed units would mean that we would have to have larger areas, larger garden areas, and a 3-bed unit means that we have to have 2 parking spaces. So the site has been developed in terms of 2-bed units, given the tight nature of the site and what could be fitted in, and that's a professional opinion of the architects, combined with the actual need for housing in the area. Bob, do you want to deal with the other question?
Okay, so I guess there's a difference between, I suppose, the word rapid build and rapid delivery. The emphasis on building these is their rapid delivery. So that doesn't preclude any particular type of construction method. The construction methods that are used or selected will have to comply with national standards to start with. There will be also a requirement on the main building elements to conform to the normal 60-year lifespan. So one can rest assured that they will be built to exactly the same standard as our conventional, as our other schemes. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so...
Sorry, I'm sure that is the case, but we can discuss this forward more in the motion I've put down, particularly in relation to that. But my real question was, the motion was to, in June, was to have a plan for rapid build housing. And that isn't mentioned, that there is a change in the Part 8. And I suppose my query is that good enough in terms of all of the debate there's been around this kind of housing and how they have gone so way over cost? It's not really about
you want to get that answered if it's...
Was it good
that's fair enough. No, I got that question. Yeah, we can get that answered. And Councillor Merrigan, you've a question that wasn't answered, is it?
Just on the issue of Stable Lane and Connaught Place.
Thank you for that. Manager, please.
If I could just read out the part in the Part 8 where it refers to it. It actually says that the design is kept simple to maximise the potential for off-site construction through modern means of construction techniques. The proposed development will be constructed with a small palette of good quality, robust and easily maintained materials. Walls will generally be a combination of metal, timber, cement board cladding that will reflect the character of the area. Roofs will typically be covered with fibre cement, slates and selected metal. Windows will be good quality timber, generally clad with aluminium. That's what refers to the rapid delivery. I don't know the answer to that question, I'm afraid.
Councillor Merrigan.
I think that question is very pertinent to a number of submissions that we've received prior to this meeting tonight as to whether the permeability as suggested in the Urban Framework Plan and in the County Development Plan can actually proceed. If it is, as suggested by those submissions, that this laneway is private, then we may have a problem there.
The permeability and the gate and the link is not affecting the Part 8 for the 12 houses that we're currently. So.
Councillor Bailey, if briefly, please.
As we're talking tonight, people are homeless. I would propose that we proceed with this Part 8. We've discussed it for over 20 minutes.
Okay. Well, we have motions, members, so we are going to proceed to the motions that have been handed up from the floor. And we have had questions. I think they've been sent to you all. So it's on item 10. It's number 4, I think it is. So the motion reads: motion regarding the proposed 12 dwellings at George's Place, Dunleary, to add a third condition to the recommendations, paragraph 11 of the report, that the gate between the site and Stable Lane be removed and the wall reinstated to its original state, i.e. a continuous wall with no opening. That's proposed by Councillor Patricia Stewart and seconded by Councillor Mary Fain. Councillor Stewart, do you wish to speak to it?
I do.
You have 3 minutes, okay. Point of order, Councillor Halpin. Yeah, that would be helpful if we could agree to that. To order, Councillor Merrigan.
I'd rather take this motion on its own, thank you.
Okay, that's fine.
I think so.
Councillor Merrigan, does your point of order still stand? Okay.
The point of order is quite simple. That this question, the one I just said a few moments ago regarding the status of that laneway and Connaught Place, applies here as well. Unless we know the legal status of the Connaught Place and where it ends and Stable Lane starts, it does apply to this question and to the one that's coming up later.
I think, through the Chair, Councillor Merrigan, I can give you more information than the Council themselves seem to have. Okay. So, I note that the designer of these houses, and I think they're sensitively designed, talked about creating a new route. And that question of a new route is something that I would be objecting to. And the laneway, for those of you who don't know it, it's the second turning on it's the first turning on the left after Scrumdiddleys. We all know where Scrumdiddleys is. And you go down this, it's a large laneway with 2 Regency terraces on either side, and there are mews houses behind that. And that wide bit of road is Stable Lane, and all the mews houses are along the back, and they're bounded by a large granite wall. And the wall is not owned by the council. DLR breached its integrity a few years ago in an attempt to lower it, but they had to reinstate it. And the wall was built in the 1830s along with the mews, which were stables for the main houses on Crofton Road. And it originally ran unbroken along the laneway. And then the fire station was built in 1899. And that fire station was used until 1992, when it moved to Kill Avenue. And the emergency exit was built in the early 1950s to facilitate emergency access only to the fire station. That's what it was built for, and the fire station had been there a long time before that. And in the past 20 years, that gateway has not been used. And the part of Stable Lane from Crofton Road towards the emergency gate was taken in charge. So this broad bit, heading towards the emergency gate, was taken in charge in 2004, and pay and display and double yellow lines were installed. But a line of demarcation at the top of this broad part of the road was agreed with DLR, and I have a solicitor's letter to that effect. And what the double yellow lines stop when the laneway that cuts across the back begins. And a line of demarcation was supposed to be painted at that time by the liner, but it didn't actually happen. But we do have documentary evidence of this. So, there are some, I want to point to some inaccuracies in the manager's response to submissions tonight, objecting to this exit being opened up. And by the way, there have been objections by the residents to having this thing opened up many times over the years, and DLR has seen fit to pay absolutely no attention to them. And despite what the report claims, the laneway along the length of that granite wall from west to east is privately owned. This is where all the Mews houses are. It has not been taken in charge. It has absolutely no pay and display, and there is absolutely no public right-of-way, and there never has been any public right-of-way. It is cleansed and maintained solely by the residents of Stable Lane.
Time, Councillor.
Mr Edmund Kenny, this is a motion, I believe I have 6 minutes for a motion actually. In 1993, Mr Edmund Kenny, owner of 7 Crofton Terrace and the Mews behind, obtained an injunction against parties using the gate for anything other than emergencies. In 2004, a solicitor's letter was written to the Council following up a meeting with the Council, recapping what had been agreed and confirming ownership and legal status of the lane and rights of access. The Council agreed at that time that access to what was now not the fire station, but a council yard, because that's what it became afterwards, that the gate would remain as existing for emergency vehicles and maintenance use only. So that's what the agreement is. I'm on the last paragraph now. Just
very quickly, please. I know it's important to you, so I'm just giving you the leeway there, but it is 3 minutes, okay?
4. It's 6 minutes for a motion.
That it would be 4 minutes for those proposed motion and 2 minutes for speakers, not 6 and 3, as has been operating today.
On the last paragraph, anyway. So, my point is that Stable Lane has been a private lane. This is the one across the back of the site. Since it was built in the 1830s, it's never been open to public access because it doesn't lead anywhere other than to the homes of the people that live there. It hasn't. The gate itself hasn't been used in 20 years. There are 14 families living there, and the residents are unanimous in their view that they will not give permission or way of leave for public access over their property. And I would just make a final point. As access won't be available at this point, I wonder whether there should be another look at the design and layout of the proposed scheme to ensure that adequate access is provided elsewhere, because what's happening with this is access onto Kelly's Avenue with this scheme is now being removed, and it's being moved round into George's Place. There's no access from Kelly's Avenue, vehicular access. So look, that's, this is what we are hoping to achieve tonight, that this is a condition put on this development, that will not be opened, and that the integrity of that wall will be reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart, and thank you for those. Just members, just for clarity, so we can actually conduct the meeting with the correct timing. I chaired that OPMP in July. I don't recall the change in the actual timing of speaking rights for motions. Now we're getting it checked, but I wasn't on it, so it may have changed before that. But the meeting administrator is actually checking that for me. But I'm operating from these minutes as of January 2016, and 24F states that it's 3 minutes for a proposer of a motion and 2 thereafter, and that's the way I chaired the meeting in June. Now, unless something's changed in between that time, that is the timing which I'll give members. Now, I understand that there was a very important issue for Councillor Stewart, as it is for all ward councillors and indeed county councillors, but that being said, in order for us to get through this meeting, I would ask for your support in keeping to the timing that is allocated in the standing orders. Does anybody else wish to speak to Councillor Stewart's motion, please? Councillor O'Callaghan, please. Thank you.
2 quick points, Cathaoirleach, and I don't doubt the contribution of Councillor Stewart. She's obviously very familiar. I think she's a resident in the area, would be familiar with the situation. It is difficult for those of us who, outside of Dún Laoghaire, without the aid of a map, to see what we're talking about. As I understand it, looking at the report, the purpose is to create a pedestrian link to the waterfront via Stable Lane, if I understand the report correctly. I think what the manager needs to explain to those of us who are not as familiar with the situation as the ward councillors would be. Are there other options in relation to linkage to the waterfront? What kind of existing linkage is there? Or if everything actually has to hinge on the reopening up of Stable Lane? Because it appears to me from the report that the emergency exit is exactly what it was, an emergency exit which wasn't used. But I think the manager needs to clarify, one, in relation to existing linkages to the waterfront, and also the effect in relation to, in the overall context of the urban plan for that area. Is this opening up a Stable Lane essential to the urban plan? My second point, and very quickly, Cathaoirleach, is I support the building of the 12 housing units. I think there were arguments made and questions raised in relation to rapid build versus tradition. I think quality is the key thing here, and once dwellings comply with the building legislation and regulations, my view on it is very simple in relation to rapid or traditional. When those houses are built, there will be 12 families get a roof over their head. That's the bottom line for me, and should be for all of us.
Thank you, Councillor O'Callaghan. Any other comments or questions in relation to this motion from the floor? Manager.
Okay, so just in terms of the proposition to have these routes between the Georgia Street and the Main Street, we're designing this in accordance with the County Development Plan and the Urban Structure Plan. And this diagram is in there, and it's also reflected then on the larger scale map that I showed at the beginning of the presentation. So what's proposed here is derived from and consistent with the County Development Plan. We've highlighted throughout the preparation of the plan and the Urban Framework Plan this idea that Dún Laoghaire has been cut off from its waterfront, which is its greatest asset, and that at every stage and every opportunity as they arise, we would try and forge new pedestrian ways through from the town centre to the sea.
Councillor Baker?
No, yes, yeah.
Forgive me, but I'm none the wiser as to where this particular gateway is. Can you actually show us on the map where this gateway is, please?
Could I just point out that this is not affecting the Part 8 itself for the 12 units that are being proposed as part of this Part 8?
Councillor Kildee, yeah.
Chairman, just a point of clarification on this. I know you said that it's in the County Development Plan, but in light of what Councillor Stewart has said to us, is it possible that maybe it shouldn't be in the County Development Plan if all the information that we've been given tonight with regard to when the opening was made in the wall and everything else, perhaps that information wasn't available to you?
Councillor Lewis.
Respond to this. First of all, in the development plan, there's no compulsion to open any laneway. It's encouraged the permeability between Georgia Street and the seafront, which is a progressive idea. It's a good idea, and it's one that we all supported here at the time in principle, but it doesn't involve necessarily forcing a laneway to be open if it doesn't want to. I come from this from a different position. As someone that lives beside a laneway and whose father spent about 15 years battling with the council to have a laneway shut, along with about 7 other laneways, I believe, in Ashlon Park at the time. In fact, if you look across many council areas, there's a huge amount of laneways that are either shut or in dispute, or the residents that live around them aren't happy with what exactly is going on inside. I don't believe we should have a carte blanche attitude to this and say, let's shut the laneway, because the residents there want it shut that are there at the moment. The fact is, there will be new residents here. There will be even greater amount of new residents, hopefully in a very short enough time. So I believe P4Profit has a better alternative motion and idea to this, which is to wait until the residents themselves move in and then ask the residents themselves, do you want this laneway opened, or would you rather live in the cul-de-sac? So all the residents that are going to live here actually get their say. I'm not predicting. I think if I lived here, I should say I would want the laneway open, but I'm not going to live there, and that's exactly the point. We could proceed with this, and a number of years down the line, the residents there that live want to turn it into a cul-de-sac and a court rather than have the laneway open. So my suggestion and our suggestion is to leave it until the residents are in the houses, and then have public consultation, and then we'll find out exactly whether we want the laneway there or not. I think that's the most appropriate thing to do.
Okay, Councillor Stewart. Councillor O'Sheen Smith, do you want to come in before Councillor Stewart? I think we should hear from the proposer of the motion, and then if you want to come in after that. Is that okay? Councillor Stewart.
I thought we'd had the manager's report. I thought everybody had to speak before the manager's report. Then we get the manager's report, then I get a response. So I will respond at the very end. I don't know how many more people want to talk on.
Councillor Stewart, yeah. Smith, pardon me.
Yeah, just briefly, I don't think there is a proposal here to build a laneway, and there's a lot of references to a laneway and an alleyway and all this kind of stuff. There's a proposal to open a gate in a wall or a door in a wall, and it's a door which could be locked or locked from one side or whatever. So, and as a manager has told us, it's not part of the Part 8 proposal at all. So I'm not sure why we have to even discuss this motion. Thank you.
Members, I'm just going to deal with the question regarding the development plan. As you know, the development plan was adopted in March of this year. And the development plan includes the urban framework plan for Dún Laoghaire, and within that there's a very clear section on George's Place, and Bob has put up the relevant drawing in regards to it. And within the section on George's Place, there's a very clear aspiration to offer an opportunity to provide a new pedestrian cycle link between George's Place and Crofton Road without a reduction in parking, is stated very clearly in the paragraph. And the issue was asked, as if I picked it up correctly, was is this any longer relevant because of the legal rights in terms of the residents of Stable Lane in terms of it? I suppose, members, I draw your attention to the fact that, you know, in the previous development plan there was a urban framework plan, not as detailed as the current one is, and in that we had a number of suggested future pedestrian routes through. One of those was the route through what's now the Lighthouse Apartments, leading from Georgia Street down to Bentley Villas. Now, if anybody had seen that site before, you'd have said you'd never get through from one side to the other, but things passed, things changed, and we've got a very nice route through now in terms of from one side to the other. So the plan was very clear. It set out an aspiration to achieve a route following on from that route, right down through George's Place, down through Connacht Avenue, down into the coast opposite. And I suppose what this Part 8 is doing by having a pedestrian gate there that won't open in the short term is respecting the fact that potentially in the future there's the possibility of providing that link through, but respecting the fact that there is a legal issue there at this point in time, or potentially a legal issue there at this point in time, but it's not preventing it happening. I went down to check the site again today just to make absolutely sure my recollection was correct. The granite wall is there. There's high red brick piers there at the moment. There's a high gate on that site with a sign on it saying for emergency access only, but that it's to be access to be possible 24 hours a day, as far as I recall, in terms of the sign on it. So I suppose what we're asking is that there will be no change to the current situation. We retain a gate. The gate won't be opened until the issues that are out there either resolved or a solution found to them.
Thanks, Caherlick. Just a couple of points. Councillor Merrigan, I must put this on the record, said that I had introduced this into the County Development Plan. Absolutely not. Well, I'm just going to make it clear that I wanted to protect the parking of the residents on that laneway. I didn't introduce that. Somebody asked a question about what was the alternative access. Well, the people living in this new build who live on Kelly's Avenue, they won't be using the laneway because they have access straight out from the front of their houses straight down onto the seafront. The idea about asking the residents what they want, well, which residents are you going to be asking? All of the residents. So is it going to be a plebiscite? Who has the largest vote is the one that wins. I mean, I think, anyway, look, there's a legal question, there's a legal difficulty there, and this wall originally was intact. It was an emergency access when it was a fire station, and it continued by default to be an emergency access when it was a council yard, which was allowed to fall into the most dreadful dereliction. So I really do welcome this new development. But I'm asking the members to support the residents on this matter and vote for the motion. Thank you very much.
Okay. Members, do we wish to vote on this motion? And do you want to do a roll call vote, or Councillor Stewart? Roll call. Clarification, Councillor John Bailey. Yeah.
If I understand the Director of Planning, she said the gate would not be open, subject to a legal decision of that matter resolved, so it's not an issue. The issue we should be put all emphasis on tonight is 12 families getting into 12 houses. I propose, Councillor Callaghan has seconded, that's what we should be dwelling on tonight, getting people into houses.
Okay. Clarification?
I raised this before and I raise it just again. The issue here, and it has been confirmed by management, there is a legal issue here. It needs clarification. Also, the point at which Councillor O'Callaghan mentioned, was this a situation where this was an exit required for safety of the area, whatever. We have to have that clarified first before we can vote on such a motion.
Okay, members, a roll call has been requested, so if we can have a roll call, please, on the motion from the floor.
Councillor Bailey? Councillor Baker? Councillor Blaine? Councillor Brennan? Councillor Colgan? Councillor Cuff? Councillor Curran? Councillor Daly? Councillor Devlin? Councillor Dockery? Councillor Donnelly? Councillor Fain? Councillor Feeney? Councillor Furlong? Councillor Gildee? Councillor Gill? Councillor Halpin? Councillor Hanifin? Councillor Hand? Councillor Kennedy? Councillor Kingston? Councillor Lewis? Councillor McCarthy? Councillor McGovern? Sorry. Councillor McKinney? Councillor Merrigan? Councillor Brian Murphy? Councillor Tom Murphy? Councillor Nick Cormack? Councillor Peter O'Brien? Councillor Shane O'Brien? Councillor Callaghan? Councillor O'Neill? Councillor Saul? Councillor Donald Smith? Councillor Carrie Smith? Councillor Ossian Smith? Councillor Stewart? Councillor Tallon? Councillor Ward?
Okay, members, the result of that motion was 15 for and 19 against, so the motion falls. Okay, and then the next motion, members, is that this Council agrees that before any rapid delivery housing is proceeded with by Dún Laoghaire Town County Council, a full report on the cost, timeline and government's framework for such house delivery is discussed and agreed by the full Council. In the names of Councillor